Hello and welcome back to Peanut Butter Neya time. You're here with me, Neya. And today we are talking all things funny. I thought that we'd take a different spin on today's podcast. And I have had so many random things happen to me in my lifetime, my very long lifetime, obviously. That was sarcasm. And I wanted to chat about this and I'm gonna tell you guys some of these funny stories that I've experienced from my in my life. I think that these experiences have definitely come from like living abroad in different countries, also just me being a noob, also yeah, just really random stuff happening in my life. I don't know if it's a consistent theme, but let's figure it out as we go. Um so okay, so the first story is about that time. This story I would like to call that time that time people thought I was my dad's wife. Or should I say sugar baby? I the time that time people thought I was my dad's sugar baby. Um so when I think I was maybe 19. Yeah, I would have been 19. And was I 19? Yeah, it would have been 19. Anyway, so I went with my dad up to the snow and like we went to the snow when I was younger, like a little bit, but not we're not avid snow bunnies, you know. We Going to the snow is expensive, first of all. So we were also not like dedicated skiers and snowboarders. So we went when I was younger a few times. I learned how to ski. I felt my dad was like good at skiing back then from memory. But honestly, we didn't go for like 20 years. But I went to a snowboard camp when I was 16 and I really learned how to snowboard. And that was like the first time I'd been back to the snow properly since I was probably like 10. But yeah. So we went back and dad and I were like, let's take like a daughter and father like trip to the snow. It'd be really fun. Like dad knows how to ski, I know how to snowboard. Um I say dad knows how to ski, but dad had not been skiing for about at least 12 years. Anyway, I said 20 years before, but I'm telling you 12 years is probably more accurate. Or maybe, yeah. So we got like some old gear. We headed up. We like hide the stuff on the way up, but we just had to drive. So we're going to Mount Buller, which is a really popular, like pretty much the only snow ski field, sorry, that we have in the Melbourne, Victoria area. That's like pretty popular. So we get to this snowfield. Our plan was to drive up to like Mansfield and then hire the gear and then head up and then get the bus. So we're parked in the bottom. So we're going overnight. We Dad and I were like, Dad was like, we don't have much money to spend on this. Let's just book something like random. So I booked this like random place that we could share. It was pretty cheap. Anyway, we head up to the bus. Here is location number one where things started to become interesting. So anyway, we got on this bus that would take us up the mountain to the ski field, and then at there we would like check in and do all our stuff, right? So Dad and I get on this bus that takes us up from Mansfield up to the ski field, and when we get there, the guy's like, "Oh, yeah, just you and your missus," and my soul was like, "Huh," and I just like looked at Dad and I was like, I played the ultimate teenage card. I just went and sat in like a corner by myself. I was like, no, thank you. I am not your girlfriend. And dad was just joking around because my dad has like a sense of humor. Was just like, it's like, yeah, just here with my missus. And I was like, oh my God, I'm dying. But I think honestly, dad was also shocked and he was just like laughing to me about it. Anyway, so took this bus up and then yeah, we went to the snow and I think we stayed at one place overnight. But I think we went skiing just a little bit one day and then we went to sleep and then woke up the next morning and went to breakfast at this hotel. And there was like a whole group of like I think they're like Malaysian. They were definitely like aunties and uncles. Anyway, they're sitting on another table and dad and I walked in together, sat at a table, and then this like nosy one of the guys from this like group was so nosy, so true of like a Malaysian uncle, like came over and was like, "Oh, how are you guys? You doing well? And then like, you here for your like anniversary or something like I'm just doing a Malaysian accent, and I was like, and Dad was like, looked at me, and my soul was just like, no, why? Anyway, so Once again, they thought that I was my dad's girlfriend, and then my dad was like, "No, this is my daughter." Um, and the guy's like, "Oh, sorry, sorry, wasn't sure." I was like, "Oh, my soul." I was like, "First of all, does this mean that I'm finally of age where I look like I could be someone that my father dates?" That's like the first thing I thought. Secondly, I was like, "My dad and I look relatively similar. I think we look pretty similar and alike." I'm like, "Did you even look at our faces? If you looked at our faces, you would notice that we look pretty alike. I have the same nose as him." And, like, we do the same facial expressions. It was just strange. Anyway, my soul was dying, and I was just like, "Ugh." And dad just really lived into the joke and thought it was so funny. So he knew I felt uncomfortable about it, so he just made me feel even more uncomfortable, which we love. That's what dads are for. Anyway, yeah, we love that for me. Yeah. Okay. Story number 2 is from living in Myanmar. So I lived in Myanmar from 2019 to 2021. It was so fun. Some of the best times I've ever had were in not Malaysia, Myanmar. It was so fun. Really grew as people a lot, but also I think like Myanmar just really taught us to like go with the flow, and that like I don't know, you just like I feel like when we lived in Myanmar, we were so chill. We were just like, yeah, like you just embrace the nuances and the cute little intricacies of the country and just like the people, the culture. They definitely were like more laid back, and obviously it was nothing like living in Hong Kong or living in Australia where everything is so, well structured, defined, like regimented, everything's like quite orderly. Whereas in Myanmar, like there's order, but it's like chaotic order. And like anything kind of flows, which is something I love about Southeast Asia is just like how people are so like go with the flow and just anything goes, they're not gonna fuss around about like the small things. Anyway, so in Myanmar, we used to grab around a lot. And it's so funny in Myanmar, like all the taxis are this old, really old Pro Box. But it's really interesting because they bought these taxi Pro Boxes from Japan. So yeah, they're all these like dingy little like Pro Boxes, but they're all the grabs and they buy them all secondhand. And I think apparently like importing these cars secondhand is really expensive, which is kind of crazy. Um, but yeah, but a fun fact about Myanmar is like you have cars that are like both sides. So you have left and right cars. And then they drive on the left hand side of the road, but then they have cars that are like right that are left. Yeah. So like the opposite to what they should be. Like usually a UK or like a left hand side drive is a right hand driver seat, but it's left handed for some of them. But anyway, it's just because like I think um colonization and a mixture of other things happening there, but very random. Anyway, back on track to what I was trying to say is so we used to catch grabs a lot, and sometimes you take a really late night grab, you're not really sure like what you're gonna get. Not in terms of the car, but like the driver. Anyway, so Alex and I were trying to get home one night. We flagged down this grab, and he pulled up and he was like, "Oh," we like hopped in the car and it was like somebody in the front seat. And he's like, "Oh, sorry, my friend's just like, cruising with me tonight." We're like, "Okay, no worries." It was so funny, like, and this did not happen just once. Like, there were like multiple occasions where, like, the driver just brought like a friend in the car, and I was like, "This is great. Like, why would you not do that?" I'm gonna do that if I ever became a taxi driver. I would just like get my friend around, like, that lived around the suburb, just like cruise around with me for the night, so that you didn't feel so lonely. There was a one time we hopped in a Grab, and it was like a whole family in the car. It was like a mum and a kid. And yeah, I think they were just like commuting or like whatever they all needed to be together, and it just was what it was. But that was so funny. Like I feel those experiences just make you more compassionate and like open to whatever happens in the world. Like you're like, oh yeah, like sure, bring your family along on the grab, no worries. Like it's just the norm. Where I feel like if someone did that in like Hong Kong or Australia, they'd be like, what are you doing? This is so unprofessional. Like, what is this experience? Blah blah blah. Right. So I just love that about Southeast Asia and like that laid back nature of just kind of like anything goes. It's kind of so funny and fun. All right. My story number 3 is about when I was in Japan and I was being so unruly. So at a ramen restaurant. This was really embarrassing because, like, if you think about Japanese culture is very like honorable, like you very much like, if you're a chef, your cooking should really get the approval of your of oh my god, I'm getting the word of the person eating your food. What a terrible way for me to describe that. But for your patron, haha. Sorry. Okay, just my brain is dying at nighttime. But anyway, so you want your patron to have the best experience, like, eating your food. And so I think they really, in Japanese culture, it's very like honorable. Everything they do it to the best standard, and everything that you eat as well, you need to be very respectful, right? Anyways, we ate this ramen, and then they had teacups as well. But then also on the tables, they had these jugs, which you would naturally think was tea, right? Correct me if you think I am wrong. But I 100% think if there is a jug on the table, that is for drinking. Okay, anyway, so then I ran out of tea, so I decided to fill up my cup. So I grabbed this jug and poured it into my cup. And then I took a sip and I was like, "Oh my god, it's the soup." And I felt so awkward. And I had to like indicate to the guy. I was like, "Oh, sorry, like can I have a new cup? I accidentally like poured the soup into this cup." And the look that he gave was like, it's just full of disdain. Like he was just, oh, it was honestly, that's all I needed. I knew that I had done so wrong already. But then he gave me that look. I was like, oh my God, this is like my dad looking at me after failing like a spelling test or something when I was 12. Anyway, it was very embarrassing, and I felt very sad to make that man feel so ashamed of me. But yeah, then anyway, I got a new cup, and got to actual tea. But it was a good lesson learned to always check the jug on your table if you're in a Japanese restaurant. Do not assume that it is tea. Do not force yourself into a situation where you are going to be embarrassed, because that is what I did, and it was not fun. I can tell you that. But it was funny in hindsight, and it was funny to me in the moment, and it was funny to Alex. So maybe it was fun. Whatever. I just felt really bad for the guy though. All right. Um, okay, I have another story for you guys. But before we do that, let's take a peanut butter break. So this is such an American peanut butter fact, because like I feel like Americans definitely invented peanut butter. But two presidents in the US have actually been peanut farmers originally. So Thomas Jefferson and Jimmy Carter. Did you know that? I didn't know that. But also, I got feedback that people were disappointed that I was not eating peanut butter in my episodes. So I am going to eat some peanut butter. But I would just like to highlight, um, if y'all have like peanut butters that you want me to try and test, let me know. I would love to test some different peanut butters, give some reviews. But I also want to know what your guys' thoughts are on me like making peanut butter like foods, or things with peanut butter whilst we are filming and doing our podcast together. Let me know, because I can always talk you through that and let you know what a good recipe is. Okay, here we have the legendary Mavis dark roast peanut butter. If you see here, dark roast is the dark roast is the best peanut butter flavor for crunchy at Mavis. You can actually see like dark roast in it. Um, it's like, I think it's very good. I can't really fault it, to be honest. I think it's a little bit sweeter than a Pix. Well, it's probably the same sweetness, just a little bit sweeter, not as salty. But the dark roast is so good. I can't really fault it. Like if I see it in a supermarket, I will always pick it up and eat it. Now I have peanut butter stuck in my throat. Okay, going back to my stories. So the next story I have is really funny. So my sister and I don't know if you guys know what Legree Reformer Pilates is, but I actually started going to it when I was in Hong Kong at a place called H Core. So if you've ever been to normal Pilates, which is, God, this is like opening up a babushka doll, but like normal, like Reformer Pilates is built off Pilates, and Pilates is just like a normal mat Pilates, similar to yoga, kind of ish, is like how I'm going to give it a basic description, but it's like more strength conditioning, like kind of like a little bit ballet, but not. Anyway, so Reformer Pilates is like Pilates on a bed, and it's like a a bed with resistance and like a pole, like a foot pole, foot bar, and straps, and you can do a whole lot of range of movements. It's essentially like strength conditioning. Just Google it, guys. I'm giving it like I'm absolutely butchering things like the description here. But reformer like Pilates is kind of like the normal thing that a lot of people do, but then the crazy people like me sometimes um do something called Legree reformer. So Legree started in LA, and it's like this mega reformer bed with extra bits and like poles and stuff. Just Google it. Once again, butchering it. Um and the focus of like the mega reformer, so the Legree reformer, is to do like deeper strength and conditioning. So when you do each movement, you do it for like 2 minutes, and you do like 4 seconds down, 4 seconds up. So it's like a total of 8 seconds per each like motion. But you do like each exercise for 2 minutes. Sorry, I got peanut butter stuck in my throat. But so I caught on to this in Hong Kong, thought it was super fun. And when I went to visit my sister last year, I was like, dude, we've got to try this, like the Legree reformer Pilates. Like it's super intense. And I love the burn. Like you've got to try it. It's really fun. So we were in Orlando. And I was like, oh, let me find a class. And I found this class. I was like, cool, they have this time slot. And I thought it was a bit weird that they had like so many time slots. But anyway, it adds like more of this will come out of the story. So we wake up at like 7 a.m., head to this class, get there at like starts at 7:45 or whatever. We get to this, we booked on ClassPass as well, so we got it for free. Anyway, but we got to the studio and there was like no one manning the studio. And I was like, oh my God, it's a virtual studio. My sister was like, what? And I was like, it's a virtual studio. Like, I don't think anyone actually mans it. I think we have to like put the PIN code in and like get in. So then we didn't get a PIN code through ClassPass because we booked it kind of late at night, the night before. So I don't think the email or whatever ever came through. Anyway, so then we rang the lady on the number and the lady picked up and she was like, oh, I'm not at the studio, but like this is the number. So we got the code, got inside. And then there's just like five of these Legree reformers like with a mirror and stuff. And then that was kind of like weird already. I was like, oh, I really, 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 really don't like when you go to a fitness studio and there's like no one there, or they like just, you know what I mean? Like that's not the point of going to a bloody like fitness studio. Like we're there for the instructor, not a pre-recorded video to watch you do a workout and like we follow. That's just weird and lazy and just like not a good business model. Anyway, so that was already weird that it was like pre-recorded. But then we went into the bathroom. I went to the bathroom and I was like, whoa, it was like this huge like statue of like Jesus Christ. And like with all this like files and stuff. I'm like, okay, that's fine. Like you're religious. Cool. A bit much for like a studio, but sure. Anyway, then we get on these reformer beds and we start this class. And at the start of the class, this lady comes on, the instructor, she gives this like full on prayer. I'm just going to preface this by saying like my sister and I are not religious. I have no issues with religion. I'm just not religious. But like there was no forewarning that this class was a religious class. So I was like, interesting. Anyway, so she was giving this like long ass prayer. And then I was like, okay, sure. Like that's fine. We can swallow that part of it. Anyway, and then we started doing the workout, which was like kind of okay. But then she kept just like referring to in the like whole workout to like small things about like religion or like Jesus or God. And it was just a bit much. Like I feel like it kind of got to the point where it was kind of funny. And my sister and I was like, what is happening? Like, how do we get ourselves into this situation? How are we here in this moment? It was just so bizarre. And I remember her reference, like one of her things that she said was like, okay, when it's really hurting and like you're really in pain, just remember like you have him inside of you. And I was like, no, that is not what I want to hear when I'm like doing this lunge and my quad is burning and my glute is burning. No, thank you. Anyway, my sister and I were like kind of just like super confused, kind of felt like a very strange thing to happen in an American setting in Orlando. It was very strange. Anyway, I thought it was very funny, but strange, but weird. My sister and I were like, we are never going back there again. That was really weird. Anyway, that was my story of going to a virtual fitness studio in Orlando and almost getting converted. But To be honest, you should try Legree Reformer. It's really, really good if you ever get the opportunity. Start with a basic class and then work up from there. It is not easy, just warning you, and you will probably feel a lot of pain for a long time. But you love it, right? You love it. My last story is about me being called the bone breaker. Sorry, that was my dramatic sound effects of me being the bone breaker. But some of my really close friends know this story. So for you guys, this will bore you, but here it is. So I have been responsible in my lifetime for breaking three different individuals' bones. Um, Totally not planned at all. I'm not a malicious person. I'm just very clumsy. And as my mother would like to say, I am heavy boned. So the first time was when I was in year four. So I think I was grade four. I would have been like nine. Anyway, so I was playing. So at my primary school, there was like a Little E's oval and a Biggie oval. So if you were like a certain age group, you're not supposed to play on the Biggie's oval because then you don't like size difference, all that. So all the people who were like in prep till about grade three or four would play on like the Little E's oval. From grade four to grade six, you can play on the Biggie's oval. So technically, I should really have been on the Biggie's oval because I was also heavy boned, as my mother never lets me forget. So I was playing in the Little E's oval, and we were playing tag with like two other friends, and we're just like jumping everywhere, jumping all over the playground, like from high to low, and just like we were really into it. It was very competitive. And then I jumped from the top of this playground and I landed on a child. Um, yeah, she landed on a child, and I was like, oh my God. And the child was like, ah, and I was like, oh my God, no. And the child was instantly crying, like, looked like they were in so much pain. I was just like, so I ran to the nurse's office and I was like crying and I was like, please, um, I jumped from the top of this thing and I landed this kid, like, he's not okay. Yeah, and then I think an ambulance came. Yeah, and I was just like crying, got sent to the vice principal's office, just like crying. And I remember my mom telling me, so she's like, I literally got a call and they were like, please come in, like, we need to speak to you, come into the office. And my mom was like, to me, all I was thinking, like, Lord, please, what has she done now? She came in, and then like the vice principal had to tell her what happened. It was like really mortifying. Anyway, what happened was I landed on this poor prep kid in the playground. Okay, prep kids are like 5. Yeah, they're 5. So they're their first year in primary school, which makes me feel so bad because that's their first year of primary school. And I think they had only just started, or it was like going into this, or maybe no, it was going into the summer. So like they would have been at prep already for like 1 year. So yeah, I felt so bad because I actually ended up breaking both of his legs. We're just going to take a moment to be silent there and just really, take responsibility for what I did. Yeah, so I broke a 5-year-old's legs, and that felt really, really, really bad. My mum made us, like, she took me to go visit this child at his home and like give a present and just like check that he's okay. And my mum was mortified. Like, I think she was honestly just like, I'm going to disown you. You're like the worst child ever. Because we got there and the poor child was in a double cast from like his waist down. And it was so bad. Like, I felt so, so bad. It was the middle of summer. It was so hot. Like, oh, it was terrible. And like, my mum was just like, really just not in a good position. My mum was like, I feel like my mum felt really, really embarrassed for us as a family. It was a real moment of like, you've brought great dishonor to the family. But yeah, I felt terrible. I was 9, like, honest mistake. It's not like I was like 21 making like actively trying to squish somebody. I was 9 making a very, very silly mistake, but it taught me a good lesson of being a little bit more gentle. But obviously not good enough because I ended up accidentally breaking my other friend's collarbone. So what happened was this was really, really like really, really unfortunate. So we were like on school camp, I was like running up this hill with my friend, racing my other friend up the hill. And then like at the end, I kind of tripped and fell and like fell forward and like I like bumped into my friend like, oh, like kind of crashed into her. But honestly, it was not that hard because like my other friend crashed into somebody else. But maybe once again, I'm really heavy boned and just a chubster. So I ran into this my friend and she was like, ah, like, oh, and I was like, oh my God, no, what's happened? Okay, and also just gonna say by this stage I was at a different school and it was in high school and I think we were in year eight. So it kind of makes it like 1% better. Um and then it turned out that she broke her collarbone. Well, I broke her collarbone. It was terrible. I felt so bad. I remember like and we were really close friends. I used to take her like buns and stuff while she was like recovering at home. But the worst thing about that was like she was supposed to be like the lead for her like dance school. And then I really ruined that. So honestly, I feel so bad. Like I'm actually a bad human, aren't I? I'm just so clumsy. Like it was just so bad like that happened. Really not okay. Ruining people's hopes and dreams out there. This story is not funny. This is just me being an idiot. Okay. I feel terrible. Okay, the last story is this one was really, I feel like, also very unfortunate and also not 100% like, this is just like, oops, like that's really unfortunate that happened, but it's not much I could have done to like avoid it. I was playing basketball with my friend and I threw the basketball at her and then she went to catch the ball and then ended up breaking her finger. I swear I'm not like some like Miss Marvel, like with like crazy amount of power, but something happens. And after that, that was when we were in primary school as well. After that, I was like, you know what? I'm gonna be really, really gentle with people. So I think now I try to be very gentle and not now, but like ever since I was like 13, I've been actively very mindful of being gentle and not trying to hurt others. But yeah, super unfortunate that those things happened between the age of 9 and like 13 for me. But like, I'm very sorry to all those people, to all those that I hurt. I'm very sorry. But lesson learnt, don't be so clumsy. Anyway, that was my story times for you guys. Some funny, some introspective, some very dark, and a poor reflection of me and my heavy boned nature. But thank you guys for listening. I hope you enjoyed it. See y'all in the next episode. Bye.